Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги, and hello everybody. I will be speaking in English today, but I could speak in Russian as well. I'm especially proud that we have one of the most amazing human rights defenders and thought leaders, and thank you very much for inviting me to this important conference in Tallinn. This is my first time in Tallinn in my life, but also is my first time as UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights situation in the Russian Federation. The timing is really important because on 24th of February, we will be commemorating the beginning of the full-scale invasion by the Russian Federation of Ukraine, which is continuing already for 2 years in front of our eyes, with myriad of human rights violations, war crimes being committed daily against the civilians of neighboring Ukraine. At the same time, this war against Ukraine is also a war against its own people. It's a war against modernity, as one of the Russian philosophers, Alexander Aitken, says. It's the special military operation is a special military operation against modernity, and I would say against its own people in Russia. I was very moved this morning to listen to the speech by the Estonian president. And he said in his speech that right now is the time that we should take sides, whether we're on the side of autocracy and the totalitarian regimes, or whether we're on the side of democracy. And I wanted to add to the president, to the distinguished president of Estonia, I think the side of democracy is also the side of human rights. There cannot be democracy without respect for human rights of everybody, everywhere, in each country. And this is the first casualty of totalitarian, authoritarian regimes is the human rights, or they weaponize them. As also the president said, freedom of speech in Russia is weaponized and turned into a propaganda. I was also very moved to hear the Ukrainian anthem. I didn't know what the gentleman with the trumpet would be playing. I thought maybe this is the Estonian national outfit, but it was Vyshyvanka, it was Ukrainian. And I was really moved to tears to hear this lone trumpet singer, because it was almost a voice to all of us, to our conscience. And it made me remember what, after the death of the mother of the Universal Declaration for Human Rights, Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the mother of the Universal Declaration, 75 years ago, when she died, they found in her purse 2 prayers, and one of them is today known as Eleanor Roosevelt's war prayer. And I thought I would have a trumpet moment, just read a very short prayer to all of you. She says, "Dear Lord, lest I continue my complacent way, help me to remember that somewhere, somehow, out there, somebody died for me today. As long as there be war, I then must ask and answer, am I worth dying for?" I think this is a question that all of us every day should be asking ourselves while the war of aggression against Ukraine is continuing just right here, just in our European neighborhood. And it's not alone, because there are so many wars at the moment in the Middle East, threatening to really, maybe, we're living in World War III already without knowing it. The aggression abroad brought a tremendous repression at home in Russia. And I'm the first special rapporteur on the human rights situation in Russia. This is a huge deal for the United Nations, and I think the world, because we have to preserve this mandate. We have to preserve it for the future. The Russian government is not recognizing my mandate. They're not communicating with me, but they're carefully following everything that I am saying or doing on the Russian Federation. A week ago, a young woman in Nizhny Novgorod was detained by the police because she was wearing earrings with the rainbow flag. And because the LGBT movement in Russia has been pronounced by the Supreme Court as extremist, everybody, the millions of people are extremists around the world, the repression's already started. This is all on the background of any anti-war expression being silenced. A package of laws of fakes against the army or discreditation of the Russian army has led to the detention of more than 20,000 people in Russia and many more, at least 600 political prisoners, according to Memorial, but every day people are detained for either expressing their views against the war in Ukraine or criticizing the government. Recently, a young poet who dared write a poem and speak publicly against the war in Ukraine was not only detained, he was raped by 3 police officers brutally in his home. He then received 7 years imprisonment for daring to write a poem. What country, ladies and gentlemen, because the title of our conference is Autocracy and Democracy, I would say we're very delicate even in calling the situation in Russia autocratic. It's beyond autocratic. I think it's a concerted effort to destroy the civil society, a country where, for wearing the rainbow flag, which originally was the peace flag of the peace movement, it's a metaphor for all of us. Detaining a person who is wearing the peace flag. It's also happened to be the flag of the LGBT movement, but it's first the peace movement in the world. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's a country with a government that wages not only a war against the Ukrainian people, but also wages a war against own people. Civil society has been silenced. Memorial, the Nobel Prize winner, has been closed down. Oleg Orlov, one of the leaders, as we speak, is facing imprisonment. Now there are new charges on extremism. It's very fashionable in Russia. Everybody is an extremist. Only not the perpetrators of horrendous human rights violations daily against the Russians, against the Ukrainians, and in some ways against humanity, against peace in the world, against the international architecture of our order in the world, which is questioned now. I was asked by journalists yesterday, and I have a limited time to speak, so I'm not going to go into details, but I was asked by journalists, well, how would you compare with the Soviet repressions in Russia? It's less, right? Or how do you compare it to the Stalinist repressions? And because we will see part of Sakurov's film Сказка, fairy tale, in a minute. Do you know, it didn't happen on 24th of February, this repression in Russia. It has been moving gradually for the past 2 decades at least. My good friend Anna Politkovskaya and colleague of Dmitry Muratov and the whole crew of Novaya Gazeta was killed 17 years ago to silence her reporting on Chechnya. And I'm very proud to say I started an award in her name only because it was so anger-making to kill a journalist, to silence her voice. But ever since, so many journalists and human rights defenders were killed. But what was the world doing 17 years ago? They were doing business with Russia. Nobody really necessarily cared. But I'm very proud to say that among us, and I want to thank Estonia, a country of 1.5 million people, for your compassion, for your humanity, and for the fact that you have given refuge to heroes from the war in Ukraine and to heroes from the human rights movement in Russia. people who are our future interlocutors to build, and from Belarus, to build new countries, new neighbors for you. Here in the audience, and Tatiana, I would like you to stand actually. Tatiana Sokolova is a refugee in Estonia, and she's our winner of the Anna Politkovskaya Award in 2021, together with Svetlana Ganushkina, one of the founders of Memorial from Russia. And Tatiana is a midwife from Mariupol, and she stayed over several months under the bombardment to assist the women with some of her colleagues, to assist the pregnant women in Mariupol to give birth without electricity, without heat, constantly bombarded maternity wards. And every one of these human rights defenders here and humanitarians is a hero. And my mandate is, as long as it continues, will be the bridge for them, will be advocating for giving them a voice, but also advocating in our countries to enable their work abroad, to enable them to continue their human rights message to the Russian government, to enable them to be with us here and tomorrow, to return in tomorrow's Russia, and we talk to them, because these are our friends for the future. Thank you very much.